All right, Rebecca, do we have anyone participating remotely? Are we live?
No, we don't have anybody. But Angela is.
All right, let me know when it feels. Oh, hello,
Hello,
Brian.
hello. Goodies. Everybody goodies, yeah.
Awesome.
We're excited to look forward to $20 fine being like. Yes.
All right.
It's directly correlated.
All right, well, 6 o'clock. Y'all ready? Yeah. All right, Rebecca, tell me when it's in.
It is. It's time.
Okay. Well, have we been recording that whole time?
Yeah, just a tiny bit.
Sorry.
All right, well, welcome everyone to the August 16th, 2023 Environmental Quality Commission meeting. This is an in-person and virtual meeting with Environmental Quality Commission members, city staff, and members of the public. Thank you for your care, your commitment, and your presence tonight. All right, so I would like to introduce staff and EQC members present. So we have Commissioners Kissel, Headley, Lynn, McKenna, Pellegrini, Yopart, and Schmidt. And staff present include Rebecca Lucky, Sustainability Manager, and Ori Paz, I believe, yes, Management Analyst. Ms. Lucky, would you please provide instructions to the Commission and members of the public about how the meeting will proceed?
Thank you, Chair Headley, and welcome commissioners to your August meeting of the commission. So for those who are attending virtually, if you'd like to provide public comment after the chair calls for public comment, you can use your raise hand feature on the bottom of your screen or next to your name in the list. And I'll be able to unmute your microphone and you can provide public comment for up to 3 minutes. If you're on a landline, you can push *9 on your phone and I'll be able to unmute your microphone. If you're here in person and would like to provide public comment, there's a comment cards over here by the doorway, and you can fill that out and return the card back to me. Thank you. I return the meeting back to you.
All right, thank you, Ms. Lucky. It's good to have you back. Thanks. All right. So item C, public comment. Under public comment, the public may address the commission on any subject not listed on the agenda. Each speaker, did you already say this, Rebecca?
No, I did not.
Okay, each speaker may address the commission once under public comment for a limit of 3 minutes. Please clearly state your name and address or political jurisdiction in which you live. And just note that the commission cannot act on items not listed on the agenda, and therefore the commission cannot respond to non-agenda issues brought up under public comment, other than to provide general information. Ms. Lucky, would you please provide or call for public comment?
Thank you, Chair Headley. If there's any members of the public who would like to make general public comment on an item that's not on the agenda, you can use the raise hand feature next to your name or fill out a public comment card. If you're virtual, you can use the raise hand feature or press *9 if you're on the landline. And I see one hand raised in person. Mitch Slomiak.
Yes. Hi.
Feel free to come closer so the owl can hear you.
Okay, great. Hello, Owl. I'm Mitch Slomiak. I'm a longtime resident of Menlo Park, and I'm co-founder and currently chair of Menlo Spark. I was on this commission from 2007 to 2014. It's great to be back here with you all. And I was also very involved with the Green Ribbon Citizens Committee from its inception in 2007 till 2011. So I'm primarily here to learn more about your climate action plan focus so that I can better determine how Menlo Spark can support the city's really important efforts. I'm mindful that these climate action efforts already seemed urgent in 2007 when I first became involved, and due to woefully slow worldwide efforts, climate action is now far more urgent. You all on the EQC and city staff appear to be doing your very best to advance actions at the local level. And I'm mindful that there are always financial, political, and organizational constraints in any municipal government. So these constraints are actually why Chris DeCardi and I founded Menlo Spark, to provide some oomph outside of the city as a really key partner with the city, meaning council staff and commissioners. So I want to give you just a brief update on our leadership transition, since we are in the first leadership transition we had was when we hired our first executive director, Diane Bailey, who I think you all know. And Diane stepped down in the middle of July after 8 years of leading Menlo Spark, and she did an amazing job, and we really miss her. And so I'll just remind you what our aim is and then what we're doing right now. So our aim is to influence the Menlo Park community to get to net zero greenhouse gas emissions by 2030. We are doing this because we recognize Menlo Park as a center of innovation and influence, and we think that actions here can have a really big impact well beyond our numbers at the regional and state level and perhaps beyond. We at Menlo Spark act as a broker of solutions and best practices, meaning we try to bring stakeholders together and work with everyone and talk to everyone who is interested. And this enables us to really help all the parties navigate and find the best solution and address the concerns, hopefully in a very successful way. So the two current priorities we have during our leadership transition, number one is what we're now calling Electrify Menlo Park, which is an initiative to support getting all approximately 10,000 buildings in Menlo Park decarbonized, which means converted over to all electric appliances and away from any use of methane gas. Diane used to co-lead this with Angela Evans on this commission. And in Diane's absence, Angela is now running the show for Electrify Menlo Park. And if she was here, I was going to say, tonight she has her EQC hat on, and she's, I think, been really good at separating the two. And she's far from the first EQC member who's been really involved in sustainability and needed to set that aside to be a commissioner. So I'm just so grateful to be working closely with her. The other big initiative right now that we got underway when Diane was still with us was we realized we needed to review our strategy, because 10 years ago, there was hardly anything else going on in town around climate action. Rebecca, you may remember this. There weren't really any other citizens groups active, and the playing field is so different. And in fact, it's really inspiring to me as I've been meeting with a lot of people in the community over the last couple of months. So we're taking a step back and saying, besides Electrify Menlo Spark, where else can we have the most impact? Once we're finished with that strategy review, and by the way, that's being led by one of our EQC alums, Ryan Price, who's on our advisory board. So once we're finished with that, then we'll know what kind of executive director we want to hire. So in the meantime, I'm working with Kristen Kuntz Duracetti, who's our vice chair, who's another EQC alum, to take on the executive functions of Menlo Spark. So that's in part why I'm here. So it's been a pleasure getting to know many of you in the process. Some of you I knew already, and I'm just looking forward to being here and seeing what the EQC is like now and what you're working on the climate action plan. So thanks for all of your service.
Thank you, Mr. Slimiak. It's lovely to have you here, and thank you for all of your service over all these years. Yeah. Any other public comment?
Yes, we do have a virtual hand raised. I'm going to unmute you, but if you could just state your full name so that we can capture it for our minutes, that would be much appreciated. So the speaker is Jane.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Good, thank you. So I'm Jane, and Nancy was kind enough to invite me to this meeting. I know many people in Menlo Park, so I'm very connected, even though I'm in an adjacent city to you. I'm the co-founder and managing partner of a company called Evucation LLC, and I'm also a psychotherapist with a specialty in climate anxiety. So about 7 years ago, my group started teaching electric vehicle classes at Stanford University. And it was very popular. We probably helped, I'd say 900 people switch from gas cars into electric cars. And we did that primarily because so much of the data shows that transportation is still really the biggest sector that's contributing to climate change right now. I mean, there's many other things also, including the buildings, as you mentioned, Mitch. But California Air Resources Board and also the EPA even cites transportation as the biggie. And so a lot of bang for people's buck if they can make that switch. And we found that, you know, applying principles of behavioral science has been very useful to help people identify barriers and figure out some solutions, set little goals, and have a lot of support from us to just, you know, kind of tip over the fence they might have been sitting on. We also do a lot of dispelling of myths. So, you know, people have a lot of myths about how expensive the cars are, which in fact, they're really cheaper in the long run, especially because of there being almost no maintenance. And, you know, there's so many ways in which we demystify these cars that help people just understand that they really can make that change. So it was the case that Forbes magazine, among others, a number of years ago showed that education was one of the most important ways to get people over their barriers and be able to adopt an electric car, as we call it, adopting them. So also there's many incentives that we help people learn about. There's ways in which there's, you know, there's a new, all the support now coming from the government through the IRA is super important. And there are used cars available. So I'm mentioning all of this because when you talk about your climate goals, I think this is a very big impact piece. And we've helped 3 local cities, you know, put on these kind of classes to get closer to their greenhouse goals. So again, you know, there's a few people out there doing this kind of thing, but I think our strength is that we use behavioral science to help people make these changes. And I know that I think I only have a minute left or less. I'm forgetting the time, Nancy.
Yeah, about 20 seconds.
Okay,
Yeah.
20 seconds. And so the other thing that we wanted to help you learn about is that charging is very important also. But you know, you might want to consider the way Palo Alto's been doing it. They put chargers in garages very close to where people work, and they have set the price reasonably low. You know, I know you don't have your own utility like Palo Alto does, but there's groups out there that can help you, can support you. You know, so PCE and, you know, various ways you can negotiate with even PG&E. So anyway, there's more I can say, but I will just give you just a big high five for wanting to push this a little bit further, and happy to be in touch with you.
Thank you, Jane. Thank you for your service and for sharing these ideas with us. Glad you're here. Any other public comment?
So at this time, if there are any other members of the public who would like to address the commission on a topic that's not on the agenda, you can use the raise hand feature. I'll be able to unmute your microphone and you can address the commission. And again, it's for items that are not on the agenda. Do not see any hands raised. We may
All right.
continue the meeting.
All right.
Headley.
Thank you. So moving on to item D, regular business. D1 is to approve the July, does anybody want to close the door?
Yes,
Thank you. The July 19th EQC meeting minutes, and also updates to the June 21st, 2023 minutes. I have a clarifying question.
sure.
Can you highlight for us the changes for the June meet? Like, why do we need to do that?
So for the June meeting, I think there was an action that needed to be added that was missed in the minutes. It was the commissioner assignments.
Okay, great. Thank you for
So we have
that.
that on the record.
Okay, are there any other clarifying questions from the EQC? No, all right. Ms. Lucky, do we have any public comment on this item?
Are there any members of the public who would like to provide comment to the commission regarding approving the July 19th, 2023 Environmental Quality Commission meeting minutes and updates to the June 21st, 2023 Environmental Quality Commission meeting minutes? You can use the raised hand feature next to your name or at the bottom of the Zoom screen, and I'll be able to unmute your microphone. And if you're here in person, validate comment card, or I already know who you are. You're in person, so you don't have to do that, but you are welcome to make public comment as well. With that, I don't see any hands raised for approving the June and July, August. That's June and July meeting minutes.
Thank you, Ms. Lucky. All right, so we can open it up now for EQC discussion, or we can move to a motion.
I move to approve minutes.
Thank you, Commissioner Kissel.
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Pellegrini Yopart. Ms. Lucky, would you please state the motion and call for a vote?
So I believe everyone's in person, so if you agree with approving the minutes, you can raise your hand and you can record. The motion passes with all commissioners present.
Excellent.
Commissioner Evans is absent.
Thank you. On to D2, where we get to review and discuss the climate action plan strategy goals number 2 and 3, and provide feedback to staff on the scope of work implementation for 2025 to 2030. So maybe just as context, I'll share a little bit and then pass it over to you, Ms. Lucky. So over the next few months, we're going to be doing a deep dive on each of the items of the climate action plan, culminating in a staff recommendation to be presented to this body next summer, and then going to the City Council for approval. So tonight, we're going to be taking a closer look at the necessary step of decarbonizing our transportation, specifically looking at increasing EV adoption and figuring out this charging infrastructure situation, especially for multifamily and commercial properties. So given resource constraints, our goal tonight is to identify the highest impact actions that we can take by focusing energy on the most significant barriers to using EVs. So first, we're going to get a presentation from city staff. Then there will be an opportunity for clarifying questions from the commission. Then public comment about these items, and then discussion amongst the EQC and staff. Okay, so Ms. Lucky, over to you.
Thank you, Chair Headley. So Ori and I have worked on putting this together, so he'll be presenting some slides as well in this presentation. But thank you for giving us some guidance, Chair Headley, on what we're seeking as part of feedback. And so the overview of this presentation is really giving some context to kind of where we've been with the CAP goal and how it was formed and what the goal is and how we're tracking the progress on that, and then incentives that are available, and then barriers, access and equity regarding EVs and EV charging and current programs and policies and discussion structure and ideas to close out and help us start the kickoff discussion. So some overview and context. So as Chair Headley mentioned, what we are working on with the commission is over the next several months, kind of looking at all of the CAP goals, continuing on what we're currently doing, but really focusing in on kind of our sprint from 2025 to 2030. So it's not necessarily kind of what we're doing in the next year or so. We've got the direction, and we're working closely with a number of you on kind of how to enhance a lot of these areas of the climate action plan. But again, really just looking at the scope of work for each of these strategies, because the last time the City Council provided direction on this was in 2021, and those were for years 2020 and 2021. And so what we've been doing is kind of through, and it's actually included in the climate action plan. It's kind of after all of the goals, how we're going to implement and what that scope of work looks like. And that was approved by council in 2021, as I mentioned. And so so what we've been doing is kind of continuing on that path, but we've been getting feedback from the council kind of along the way up until present moment. But we're looking at a more strategic approach, again, for that last kind of sprint between 2025 and 2030. So the final staff recommendation, kind of based on kind of what we're going through with the EQC, and then talking to the city council about kind of what does this look like? Is this enough, input, or do we need to do more community engagement? A final staff recommendation in late 2024, so that's next year. So then we're hoping to start off 2025 and figure out with a good line of sight what we're going to be doing over those 5 years. This is really an opportunity to brainstorm until March of 2024. So if you're thinking of things tonight and you're thinking that this is the last meeting to give feedback, it's not the last meeting to give feedback. We can revisit it, so we can bring it back to the commission if there are a lot of ideas or there's like things to noodle on. And so that's why we've left some space in those agendas, is usually we have about 2. That's, we usually get through the 2 agenda items in about 3 hours. So again, it's not the last bit. And you are welcome to email, ideas as well to us and members of the public as well. So we can take all of that feedback through that avenue as well. So CAP strategy number 2, I'm going to hand this off to Ori.
Great, thank you. So yes, for CAP strategy number 2, the goal here was to set citywide goals related to the number of electric vehicles that are sold every year. So the goal was to achieve 100% of new vehicles sold in the city as EVs by 2025, and then decreasing gasoline sales 10% a year from a 2018 baseline. So that would be year over year. And so this CAP strategy goal was deferred to the Beyond Gas Initiative, or BGI. And that was the direction from the city council during the 2021 progress report. And BGI was initially housed under joint venture Silicon Valley. And that initiative has since shifted to a nonprofit called Tura. And through their efforts, they're continuing work on implementing CAP strategy number 2. And then the city's continuing to look at the data. And so we've been able to partner with Peninsula Clean Energy, who gets data directly from the California DMV. And we also have information about sales tax, and so analysis from sales tax collections from the gas stations within the city. Looking at why the goal was set, really, as the public commenter Jane mentioned, transportation is a large portion of our community emissions. Menlo Park, it's 48.2% based on the 2019 inventory. And, we're still part of a primarily suburban development pattern. And so the private vehicles are the primary means by which most people are getting around and into the city. And so that, in combination with the carbon-free electricity that's provided by Peninsula Clean Energy, switching to EVs creates an opportunity to eliminate a lot of the emissions that we're seeing within our community profile. And I mentioned we're tracking this through the PCE data sharing agreement that they have with the California DMV. And so we'll have some information about kind of what that data is showing. And then again, sales tax analysis. So looking at the sales tax that's collected from gas stations, and then doing some of the analysis to determine estimates of how much of that is from gasoline sales, and then looking at that year over year. So with that, you can next slide, please. So looking at the number of EV registrations is an important part of what we're looking at. So this is data that was provided by Peninsula Clean Energy, and again, this is through their partnership with the California DMV. So in 2019, we saw there were a total of 45,450 cars registered in the city of Menlo Park. Of those, 2,200 were EVs, so about 4.8% of the vehicles were electric vehicles. And then you can see there was a bit of an issue in 2020, and they weren't able to get the data. But in 2021, there was a substantial drop in the number of vehicles. total vehicles. And so we believe that could have to do with the COVID-19 pandemic. And so the data is a little bit skewed here. We were also able to get in touch with PCE, and they provided some additional information regarding the number of new vehicle purchases. And so, well, that's not on the slide. I can tell you that in 2022, 34% of the new vehicles within the county were electric vehicles. And so that's steadily up from 24% in 2021, 17% in 2020, and 17% in 2019. And they're estimating that we're likely to see approximately 40 to 45% of the new vehicles sold in San Mateo County being electric vehicles for 2023. So it's kind of steady increase in that with the existing programs that are already being implemented by Cultura, and then others. They're funded by the state or other organizations. So with that, I can maybe next slide, Rebecca, and then I think it's over. Okay, this is our gasoline sales data. Thank you. So you can see it's similar to that increase in the number of electric vehicles that we're seeing registered. We're also seeing a decrease in the annual gasoline sales. And then, so this graph shows the millions of gallons of gasoline sold on the left y-axis. On the right, it's metric tons of CO2 emitted. And this is using the EPA calculator to convert gallons of gasoline to CO2 emissions. And so you can see there's a small decline between 2017 to 2018, 2018 to 2019, and a large dip in 2020, 2021, and 2022. And we believe that that's primarily due to the COVID-19 pandemic, the remote work situation. And so even looking at the first quarter of 2023 gas sales, it does appear that there's been a small uptick in that. So we have not yet reached the kind of new normal, and so things are still in flux, but it does appear that there are fewer emissions. But it's difficult to say that that's directly related to the number of electric vehicles on the road. Next slide. Okay, and I'll hand it back to you, Rebecca.
Thanks, Ori. And I forgot to mention that we do have Philip Kobernick from Peninsula Clean Energy too, and we can bring him online if you have any questions about Peninsula Clean Energy programs or the data that they're also getting. So Climate Action Plan goal number 3 kind of dovetails off of Climate Action Plan goal number 2, which is why we're putting it together, because they are very interlinked. So number 3 really gets down to access to EV charging or electric vehicle charging. And so in 2021, the City Council approved the scope of work for this CAP goal to use staff resources to monitor the effectiveness of state, local, and regional charging infrastructure incentives, because a lot of them had just come out around 2021. And so there was kind of like a wait and see if these incentives really motivate folks to install EV charging where it's needed. So the goal was set because one of the main barriers to EV purchases is kind of, do I have enough charging infrastructure, whether I'm going long distance or, in my community or at home. And so we also learned through a gap analysis that about 40% of residents in Menlo Park reside in multi-family properties. And a large portion has shared parking. So this is 4 units or more. So don't necessarily have that convenient access within a quarter mile to charging, which can make it difficult to either kind of put all your chips in to get an electric vehicle, or even to continue to use it once you have it and you realize there might be these hardships that you're unwilling to accept. And so how we're tracking this goal, we do track the number of EV charging permits that we issue. It's a little bit hard to kind of drill down into kind of whether it's for multifamily. We usually just issue 1 permit, and then we have to dig deeper into the description to understand how many, and then figure out like how many units it might serve. So I guess what I'm trying to say, it's a pretty good data set, but it maybe doesn't tell us too much about what's happening. Besides the fact that people are doing this thing. We do have EV charging maps through our GIS system and through a lot of other kind of platforms where we map out. And one of the additional slides we have is beyond this presentation is looking at where there is a lot of multifamily housing in particular, and kind of how close they are to these charging stations. And then we are also tracking EV charging rebates for multifamily and commercial properties that participate in PCE, but we've been mainly focusing on multifamily properties participation in the incentive program. Again, because we know that there's a huge equity and convenience that goes along with purchasing an EV and being able to just charge it at your residence. So we've done quite a bit of work, probably even a bit beyond what the council had given us in scope. So it's kind of, we are continually hearing feedback from the council, and so we readjust the scope. But we did present an EV charging infrastructure gap analysis to the city council in October of 2020. It was pretty lengthy and it had options to pursue to kind of really meet our 2030 goal. And it had a few policy options for existing multifamily properties, but ultimately the council decided to kind of pause thinking about any policy options until, again, we figured out how the incentives were going, what else could be done to kind of voluntarily push multifamily property owners and commercial properties to install EV charging. For the Environmental Quality Commission, staff did present a possible program where Menlo Park could match some of the Peninsula Clean Energy rebates. So at that time, there were some additional kind of restrictions for, like, for example, multifamily property owners to participate in the Peninsula Clean Energy program, but they've refined that program a little bit more. So we're starting to see participation in the program and kind of what is that rebate cover for the multifamily property owner? So how much is a cost share for the property owner, and how much is that PCE paying into that project cost? We did send a letter to multifamily property owners regarding PCE's incentives. So, we also included a survey, but no one really filled it out. So we didn't get any information back on that, but we did let them know about the PCE incentives and programs. And we put informational articles in the solid waste billing inserts through the city's digest as well. And we're continuing to work with PCE to track and monitor the incentive participation. And we are also staff are starting to kind of meet pretty regularly with Peninsula Clean Energy staff to kind of get updates on participation, what are the barriers, give feedback from anything that we're hearing in Menlo Park from property owners. And on the policy side, we have the last round of REACH codes that started January 1st of 2023. We did enhance the requirements for multifamily so that every unit has at least a level 1 plug. So I think it's like 15% of the units need to have level 2 charging, and all the rest need to have at least access to a level 1, which is their standard outlet. And I have a picture of kind of the different levels of charging. So that was a really great move and that's just for new construction. So that's not for existing buildings. We also implemented a fee waiver and credit program for existing buildings. If they're getting a permit to install EV charging, that permit fee can be waived. And so we just started that last year. So it's been about a year since it's been going on. And then policies that are beyond Menlo Park that are also helpful to meeting our CAP goals or climate action plan goals is the state will require that all new vehicles sold in California need to be clean air vehicles by 2035. So we definitely know we'll be meeting our goal by 2035 for sure. And California also has a law that requires landlords to approve tenant requests to install EV charging stations in their dedicated parking spaces, as long as the tenant's willing to pay for the charging station and associated costs. including installation and utility costs. But there are some exceptions to that rule. I've listed some here. So if the landlord's already, like if it's a new development, they probably already have 10% of EV charging, then they may not have to do that. There could still be issues with, you know, if there's more than 10% of the units that are needing the charging and having to kind of figure out how to manage that. If the tenants aren't provided parking in their lease agreement, there's fewer than 5 spaces. So maybe some of the fourplexes might not, you know, have to adhere to this law. Or the unit is covered by a local rent control ordinance and a local EV charging station ordinance that was adopted before January 1st, 2018. So we're on to the incentives section. So for new electric vehicle incentives, and Ori, we didn't discuss this, but he put this table together, so I want to acknowledge that. There are different incentives based on income level of what you can get with a federal tax credit, California Clean Vehicle Rebate, and a California Vehicle Retirement Consumer Assistance, and BACMID, Bay Area Air Quality Management District incentives, and this is to purchase new electric vehicles. And so we've got some pricing too, as how that compares to buying a new gas vehicle. And a couple of our other slides, if we don't have it, or you can definitely tell us. So there's some pretty good incentives. If you make less than $50,000 a year, you can get almost $18,000 in rebates to buy a new electric vehicle. There are also incentives available for used electric vehicles. And I think it's important to keep in mind too, that used vehicles don't have the greater range that we're seeing in the newer cars. And so that kind of, again, factors into the ability to charge frequently. But it is based on, again, income level. And if you're making less than 50,000, there's over $10,000 in incentives to purchase a used EV vehicle. See, I didn't know it, or he did include this table. So the cost comparison between getting a Toyota RAV4 that's gasoline versus a Tesla Model 3, the cost savings. So Ori was looking at, and he can explain this probably better, and you can chime in, Ori, if I'm not doing your slide justice here. But essentially, kind of what's the payback period if you were to purchase a RAV4 versus a Tesla Model 3? And your cost savings do equal out over. I'm going to let Ori talk. Part of it on our.
Oh, no, I was just going to say you're doing great. That's exactly it. And I would just add that the reason we selected these two vehicles for comparison is that they were at the top of the list for like the most popular vehicles based on registrations in San Mateo County for electric vehicles versus gas vehicles. And then, yeah, to Rebecca's point, just to kind of reiterate, it's there's a lower monthly operating cost. This is based on the PG&E cost compare tool, and so they're looking at averages, so it would be a little bit better in Menlo Park, again, because of the electricity that's coming from Peninsula Clean Energy, and so the payback periods, and then the cost savings, you would see a little bit more because there's some savings related to the price of electricity, which further reduces the monthly operating cost for the Tesla Model 3. And yeah, that's all I have to say about that.
Thank you, Ori. I think the other part to add too is if you're buying like a Nissan Leaf, you're going to see even greater savings and probably get your payback much quicker than 20 years. And if you're purchasing a Tesla, it's obviously a little bit more expensive versus a Nissan Leaf. But again, then there's the range aspect as well to consider. So Teslas still have a larger range than Nissan Leaf, but I think they're getting better.
Can I ask a question on the slide, or would you prefer that we hold them to the end?
For clarifying questions, yes, I think that'd be.
Yeah, so the savings, is that compared to the RAV4? The EV versus gas?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
So also clarifying here, so you're going to, I just peeked through the slides. So
Okay.
you have a lot of material at the end about the maps and the reads and so we can ask those questions
Yeah.
later to understand. Cool.
So as I mentioned, Peninsula Clean Energy launched their EV Ready program in 2020. So there was originally $24 million in project incentives. There was kind of two pathways for the program. One was through Cal EVIP, which that's state money that was directed to a lot of the community choice aggregation of energy
Yeah.
agencies. And then some of the CCAs also kind of looked at their own pot of money and how they can kind of further amplify and see the transition of installing more EV charging infrastructure. And so as I mentioned, the program has evolved over the years along with more funding. But that's giving you a little bit of context of how it all started and when it started. And in case you're not familiar, I'm sure this group is though, but level 1 charging is again, it's just a regular household plug. Usually these vehicles do come with their own trunk chargers, but former Commissioner Cavett used to call them. And then there's a level 2 charging, which is more of like your dryer plug. And then the more formal stations that you kind of see outside of City Hall and other public parking areas. And the levels of charging will, depend on how long you need to be at a charger to get, the amount of battery power that you're looking for. So level 1 typically charges slower, but it's also pretty cost effective to do it that way. And then level 2 gets you a little bit faster. And then we have fast charging as well that's available. So just a little bit more about Peninsula Clean Energy's incentives for existing multifamily properties. So the way it works is they offer free technical assistance right out of the door to multifamily properties. They either do kind of a site walk or a remote kind of site analysis of maps, ask questions to the property owner. And then from that, they're able to offer 3 different types of options for the property owner. One, to really maximize the amount of rebates. Sometimes the property owner has a certain kind of budget, so they kind of work with the property owner and figure out what might be the best option for them. So for Cal EVIP, the pathway that's through the state funding, for existing multifamily, you can get only level 2 charging for up to $5,500 per port. Peninsula Clean Energy's incentive program for multifamily offers level 1 charging incentives. So it's $2,000 per outlet. And there's an additional incentive for housing, so that there's an added $500 for a total of $2,500. And there's no cap for the total of these projects. So they can almost basically get 100% of their project costs covered through level 1. Sometimes there's a bit of hesitation from property owners because we're not quite sure like how to accurately charge. For example, a tenant on that, there is technology currently out there. I know Peninsula Clean Energy's kind of been working with some of these companies to see if there's a way to like monitor in real time an outlet and how much energy is being used so that there is that more accurate charge. For level 2 charging, Peninsula Clean Energy offers $5,500 per port, up to 75% of the cost of the total project, and then maximum of $90,000 per property. So per port is the actual port itself. So when you see the charge point chargers, the orange ones, they usually have 2 ports. So for one charger like that, where you have 2 ports, you'd get $11,000. That's what the multifamily property owner is looking to install. And then just some current costs, like current market cost for installing EV charging. So PC has kind of been looking at this through some of the projects that have gone through their program. For level 1 charging, it's about $2,400 per outlet. So as you can see, the level 1 charging does cover quite a bit of that cost. So the property owner is basically paying $400 per outlet. For level 2, it can range between $5,000 and $9,000 per connector or port, depending on if trenching is needed. I think it's also similar to level 1 charging. If there's trenching that's needed, like more outlets that need to be run or upgrades, that can increase the project costs. So Menlo Park's multifamily property participation in PCE's program. So currently there's one multifamily property with 41 units that applied for 9 ports under the state program. And for Peninsula Clean Energy's incentive program since 2020, there have been about 5 condominium complexes that have installed 56 level 2 ports. And what we're finding is that the incentive is covering at least 65 to 9% of the project cost. There was one apartment complex that installed 12 level 1 ports, with the incentive covering 98% of the project costs. And the incentive, is at least helping 78% of the units at each of these locations have access to charging. So that means 78% of the unit has their own dedicated way to charge. So barriers, access, and equities is going over kind of some of the information we found from our 2020 EV charging infrastructure gap analysis. So UC Davis did a consumer study around when do people charge, what's their preferences. And they found that at home or near the residence was the most common way for people to charge. So 50 to 80% of the charging events really occur at that location. Work and workplace or commute locations is 15 to 25% of charging events. And then there's 5% for, the destination, like, so the fast chargers, public accessible locations. And so some of the reasons identified for why at-home charging occurs is because it's really reliable, it's always working. Sometimes the chargers that are out in the public are managed by private property owners, they may or may not be working. And it's convenient, obviously. The vehicle can charge overnight when you're not in use, you don't have to wait to do anything. It's done when you wake up and are ready to use the vehicle. It does cost less than using public charging stations because it has that more trickle approach, and PG&E tends to offer some different rates if you're charging at home and trying to encourage that. So kind of going back to what does it cost to charge at home versus everywhere else? For level 1 at home charging, where you get 5 miles an hour, it costs about $5 to charge 100-mile battery. And it does take a bit of time to get to that full 100 miles, about 20 hours. So you may not have a fully charged battery when you wake up, but you may not really need that if your commute is reasonable. For level 2 at home, you get 13 to 25 miles per hour of charging, and that cost is about $4.50. And that's 8 hours, so you'll definitely have a full battery by the time you wake up. Level 2 charging at a public area is the average cost is $12. So you can see how it kind of jumps when you're getting into the public area, because there might be different rates. The commercial kilowatt hour rate may apply. And then there's the direct current fast charging. And again, that's about $13.50 for a 100-mile battery, and you're there for 45 minutes in a location waiting for your battery to charge. So as I mentioned, for renters or those who live in multifamily properties with shared parking spaces, this access to charging issue can be quite problematic. It can make it really hard for us to reach our climate action plan goals. If there's people in the community that can actually, afford or take advantage of the EV purchase incentives or used EVs that don't have access to charging. And the multifamily residents still kind of tend to not purchase EVs. They haven't really been able to make those decisions as much as the single family homeowners or residents. And again, it's just the at-home charging has been identified as the most influential decision of whether to kind of take the plunge into purchasing an EV. So discussion, so we're almost there. I know you're all burning too. I want to talk about this. And so when looking at kind of, again, centering on what is our plan for 2025 to 2030, it's kind of, we have limited staff and resources. We also know there's a lot going on with Peninsula Clean Energy, the state, the federal government. And so it's kind of figuring out where best to use our resources, our influence and our tools, you know, whether it's outreach and education, focused support to residents or property owners, or looking at policy or incentives. And so we're trying to figure out is like, okay, you know, if we are limited, I mean, we can certainly look at if we're not limited and what that vision looks like, but with a limited budget and resources, what would be the highest priority that would create the most change to meet our CAP goals. And so we're just kind of starting off with some possible ideas. To, of course, continue to partner with and promote Peninsula Clean Energy's programs to increase use of EVs and EV charging incentives. And then exploring city-sponsored EV charging incentives. So San Carlos actually recently put $100,000 to match Peninsula Clean Energy's rebate for existing multifamily. So that's a possibility, or explore installing more public charging within a quarter mile of multifamily properties with shared parking. And not concluded, but we do have other informational slides in case you have burning questions, because Eduardo was alluding to those, but here's our
Yeah.
geospatial analysis that'll make your mind spin with all the colors on it. And so we've got multifamily properties and where charging is. And so you can kind of see, I think this map really just mainly shows where we have a lot of multifamily properties.
Mhm, mhm, mhm.
And what else we got in here? The breakdown of Menlo Park multifamily, like owner occupied, non-owner
Oh, this is
occupied.
great.
How many are 4 to 9 units, or how many are 50+ units?
Sorry, a quick question on that.
Sure.
Why there's a cell that's empty?
Number of sites. Yeah, I'm not sure why that is,
We
but yeah, the number of units, maybe we don't have like the number.
don't have the info?
Yeah, I can find out. though.
Okay.
That could be a follow-up. But yeah, this table is interesting. Yeah, 'cause looking at it, we have a lot of units that are 4 to 9, so kind of smaller, I'd say, size multifamily properties, and then the next is 50+. So quite a bit of stretch there between our makeup of multifamily units. And then this is the summary of EV charging infrastructure for multifamily properties by
Okay.
type. So kind of figuring out how many have on-site charging. So on-site charging, less than 1% of multifamily residents have access to a charging station. And then like 2.5 have at least access somewhere within a quarter mile. So we use quarter mile because that seemed like reasonable walking distance if you're gonna leave your car somewhere for a little while. And then again, kind of breaking down what that looks like. But you'll notice like the 50+ units have more access to on-site charging. And I think we can make the assumption that those are new construction, right, where they put in more of that charging.
You don't have income data with this.
We could get it,
You could, okay.
yeah, it'll just take us a little while.
It's interesting, the very bottom, sorry, go back
Okay.
one. That although the 50+ unit complexes have almost 4% on site,
they have less than 1% within a quarter mile, yet the 20 to 49 have 10%. Seems like a big drop off. It may just be where they built it. Yeah, but I mean, that seems like a right place if to your point about economics, if those 50+ unit facilities are lower income, that seems like a great place to put chargers.
Yeah,
All right, cool.
and then we're just,
The range.
a lot of people have questions about the range, so
Yeah.
the range is pretty.
You know, depends what you
For
believe
a
about
Tesla.
what Tesla says. Apparently, there's a big controversy.
Is there?
They never make their range. They never. That's okay.
Okay, was that? Yeah, that concludes. All right, our presentation.
Thank you, Ms. Lucky and Mr. Paz. That was really informative, and I appreciated seeing those additional slides. I don't think they were part of our pre-read. So, and I imagine that the data about the multifamily unit dwellings will also be helpful as we look at building decarbonization
Yes,
too. So
yeah.
rock on with that. Okay, so the next step would be to ask any additional clarifying questions from the EQC. And then we'll open it up for public comment. Are there any other questions?
I had one, I don't know, I think it's clarifying, it was on the additional slide around, the geospatial analysis, it just out of curiosity. I think the ones on, Meta campus were split out from private ones, are those meant to be,
That's a good point, yes, so.
non-private, just out of curiosity?
Yeah, so this map was taken as part of the 2020 gap analysis. So I believe what I understand from Meta is that they've limited the public charging on their campus.
So I don't, you probably, I mean, you probably know, last time I was almost ran out of juice. I begged to get a charger from Meta and they told me go away. And I was at 5%.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that's a tough thing about relying on commercial properties, and I've had that happen too with mine.
Yeah.
Not with Meta, but with another
Yeah, well,
company,
this-
Sunnyvale,
this
where I
was-
was like at 1%, I'm like, I need to pick up my kids. They're like, no.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I think, yeah, that speaks to kind of like the roles and kind of figuring out like how EV infrastructure is going to kind of roll out in the future over the next 15 years and kind of who going to oversee that or ensure that, you know, there is reliability, right, that the charger you're going to actually works. Or if it's a high traffic area. I've also had problems where it's like they're all occupied and you're trying to get home, so you're like actually then taking 2 hours to like get a charge. Yeah, that's a good question. Thank you for making that clarification.
I have another clarifying question. I was wondering if PCE offers incentives to cities to make public charging available to everybody.
I think there is some, like we could put like fast charging in some of our lots. We just, when we have dabbled in it before, kind of where we could put some in or more. But yeah, there is room for that.
Cool. Any other clarifying questions?
I had one more, on, back to the comparison of the electrical vehicle costs on slide 14. I just wanted to check if we had additional data in terms of it costing like $100,000 over 20 years. But based on the monthly operating cost plus the total, it adds up to something more like just quick, like it's like on the scale of 70,000. So I'm not sure if there's like additional expenses just not being added to get to the total.
Good point.
Like maintenance or something?
Yeah.
Or insurance.
Yeah, I'm wondering if it's like maintenance or insurance or something like that. I mean, it's just for myself, I was like, well, I didn't realize I'm spending $100,000 on that car, so.
Yes, so if I may, it does factor that in. And again, this is from it's the PG&E EV compare tool. That it looks like the link isn't there, but we can send the link out and then you can take a look. But it does consider the cost of maintenance and insurance with caveats, and then you can toggle the average gas price, which we used our gasoline sales data to factor into this analysis. But also, it's a pretty powerful tool with a lot of different considerations that you can apply.
So it's 20 years. So if you take monthly operating cost at $260 times 12 times 20, that's a lot of dollars.
But it's not, it's not 100,000. I think, right?
see.
Unless I'm doing my math really wrong.
Let's see, 261 times 12 times 20. That's $62,000.
Yeah, it's just, but it's not 158. I guess that's my.
Okay, you're right. All right, so even that.
Yeah.
Got it.
I mean, I think,
Yeah.
I mean, we don't need to dive too much into it, because I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
we're just talking about the difference between the monthly operating cost of gas versus EV. But I just wanted to clarify what we were exactly considering in that monthly operating
Yeah.
costs, just so we know
There,
exactly what the.
you're right, there is a PG tool that's powered by GD Power, and you can go in there, and I think on the PG&E website, you'll see all the elements that go into the total cost of ownership calculation. Their default is a 5-year calculation, which I think is more reasonable. The 20-year is like, nobody keeps a car for 20 years anymore. But the thing that's really nice about the PGE tool is you can set in all kinds of different expectations of the cost of electricity, the cost of gas, how long you own the car, et cetera. So
That seems like a great resource for
It's
people
a
looking to
great-
make a good decision. I think Commissioner McKenna had a question.
I was just curious on the 24 million that's available through Cal EVIP and PCE. Is that also for commercial buildings or only multifamily?
So the PCE program that I was specifying is just for existing multifamily. There is, PCE does have some funds for like new commercial and commercial. I can bring up their webpage, but
Yeah,
quite a few in there,
I think the PC also has commercial.
but it's a separate program from the
The
24
larger
million.
bucket is
I
about 20
don't
million.
know, I mean, it wasn't the same brochure that I was looking at.
oh, Philip's raising his hand. He could probably, I'm gonna promote him to analyst. This is Philip Kobernick from Peninsula Clean Energy.
But I think we could consider that one too, right?
Well, it's just, yeah, it's good to know if 20 million is specifically targeted multifamily, or is it multifamily and commercial?
Yeah.
That's the question for PCE.
All right, Philip, take it away.
Hi there, happy to answer that. Thanks for having me. I'm Philip Kobernick. I'm the Senior Transportation Programs Manager at Peninsula Clean Energy. So to clarify, our EV Ready program, that's our $16 million investment in funding for EV charging. That's available for multifamily housing, public access, any public access sites, and that includes government facilities, but it also includes just a garage that wants to make their charging stations open. We define that as if I can drive up to it in my Chevy Bolt and plug in, that's public access. And also employee charging, those are all eligible categories. And for employee charging, we also define that pretty liberally to include employee or fleet charging or a combination of the two. Those are all eligible projects for our EV Ready program.
Awesome. Thank
So
you.
now that I know that you are here, I had several questions about this. Is this a good time to ask?
If it's
Well,
clarifying, yeah.
Yeah, if it's clarifying.
Yeah, so what does it mean, public access? In a parking garage? I mean, does that mean that anybody can go there?
So for our program,
Yeah.
yes, exactly. So to get a charging incentive in our program, public access is just generally defined as, can somebody go up to it and use the charger? So it's not behind a gate, it's not fenced off. It doesn't have to be open 24/7, but it has to be available for anybody to reasonably get to it. So it can't be a charger just for your employees or in like an employee only area. The way I think about it is, if I'm going to go visit the site to check on the charger, if I can plug there, it's a public charger.
Yeah, but in the case of the multifamily, so you have multifamily, you have assigned parking lots, whatever it is. Can the building owner, the landowner, or the community put a gate on there to protect their chargers?
That's fine. Yeah, that's fine. For our program, we allow property owners to install charging at assigned parking spaces that are not available to the public for multifamily or really for anybody. You can put in a private charger at your workplace, and that's also fine for our program. It could be behind a gate. We don't require public access for any of the charges in our program. It's a huge problem for state programs. A lot of them require public access, and so multifamily with assigned parking have not really been able to tap into those state funds, which is a major reason why we've done that in our program.
I have more questions. I actually annotated your doc. Another question, you say something about they have to be able to bill using a credit card, I think.
Yeah, be able to what?
There is a section here that says something about the program that anybody has to be able to go to the charging station and actually pay with the credit card.
Oh,
I'll pay with a credit card.
yeah. So Philip. The
We
question
may have
is,
listed.
yeah.
Oh,
I'm
there you
not
go.
sure I'm understanding the question. If
you have to be
Yeah,
able to
so
pay
it's-
with a credit card.
On
at the
level
charge-
2, installation requirements on level 2 says that something about the communication protocol, and then the billing must accept some sort of credit card.
Oh, for our program. Yeah, so we're just mirroring state law there. So if you make it available for the public and you are levying a fee, you have to be able to accept a credit card. Or it can be on an app, or it can be a physical card, but you have to have a way of anybody paying for the charger to use it without having like a membership or something like that. Those we're just kind of mirroring. You got to comply with state law in terms of taking payments for EV
But
chargers.
that doesn't apply to the multifamily tenants.
State law, those are really for level 2s. If you're doing behind the fence parking, I don't know, we're kind of like a little loose on this. If you're doing behind the fence parking for residents only, you don't have to have a payment system. If you want to do it a different way, we're fine with that for our program. Like if you want to do like an offline way of just figuring out like a reconciliation process, like some condo boards do that, they'll just do a quarterly or annual reconciliation where they match up the energy. You don't have to have a billing system built in for our program.
Bill, yeah, that was it. I mean, yeah, great, thanks for that.
All right, any other clarifying questions from the commission? All right, if not, we can go to public comment on this item, and I see that Jane's hand is up again, but I don't know if that's from before. And just hasn't come down, and I see your hand too. Let's go to Jane first though and see if this is a new comment or if it's an old one.
Almost there.
Oh, thank you, Rebecca.
Hi, Jane.
Hi there, can you hear me now?
Yes, yes.
I just wanted to mention a couple things. First of all, I'm really impressed with Rebecca's slideshow. High five to you, Rebecca. So much good stuff in there. And I just want to say a couple things. One is that it's important that people don't get nervous about if they live in a multifamily unit dwelling, that they can't get an EV until they get a charger in their own place. I mean, it's, very wonderful when you can, but we have quite a number of people in our classes and even in our own condos where we live who are using the public charging in nearby garages. And, just to get started, it's a fabulous thing. And then, eventually they'll shape their behavior in a direction to get a charger at home if they want to. Or I have a friend who's got a Tesla and she's so happy just charging it at the local garage that's 3 blocks away that she's not even going to bother with a charger at home. So I just wanted to just really make that point that shouldn't be a barrier, to get started, at least for the low-hanging fruit who are willing to take that first step. And then the other thing is my business partner, Jim, he wanted to remind you guys, he's works at ChargePoint, but he wants to make sure everyone knows he's not pushing ChargePoint. But he says, you know, make sure to even just look at how many people are commuting into the city and then leaving, you know, during the day to go home after work, because you could track just the electric miles instead of number of vehicles, you know, to use for data about your greenhouse gas emissions. And that's part of what Palo Alto has started doing. Just, you know, 50% of their employees come from out of town. So that's just an idea. And finally, I'm going to come over there and just come to the rest of the meeting in person. But I just want to really champion how great this is that you're taking this on.
Thanks, Jane. All right, Mitch, over to you.
So I'll second what Jane just said. This is fantastic information and really well presented, though I do have a suggestion for this slide that's on here right now. So I'm looking, what I'd love to know, not 20 years savings, because I'm with a good commissioner who said, you know, most people don't own their vehicles for 20 years. I'm really interested in, at what point am I starting, is my Tesla Model 3 starting to cost less? And if I'm reading this right, there's an approximately $150 a month operating cost savings. So when I look at a Tesla that costs $6,000 more after incentives, I find that in 40 months, I have equaled the price with those savings, which means it's like 3 1/3 years. And if my calculations are right, or even if they're not, I would love for the slide somewhere to just call that out, because I think that's what's important for the public to see, because otherwise someone might look at this and completely misread it and say, oh, it's going to take me 20 years, because that's the number spotlighted. So a friendly suggestion. A whole different point. It was brought to my attention in July that PG&E had a major announcement about EV charging rebates, and they have the big program is aimed at commercial, multifamily, and affordability. And I haven't digested all the details, but Electrify Menlo Park did some poking around and talked to PG&E, and it sounds like their program is additive to what Peninsula Clean Energy is doing. So I think that's worth looking into and adding to the suite of tools, because that, depending on, you know, the level of affordability, et cetera, and the specifics of the program, that could really drive the cost down for multifamily. And I was really excited when I learned about it. And to that end, a project that Menlo Spark is funding that hasn't quite started yet, but we're getting close, is a low-income multifamily electrification project in Bellhaven. And we weren't originally thinking that we could also put in EV chargers, but now between Peninsula Clean Energy and PG&E, we think there's a chance that we could put in level 2s. So we don't know for sure, but it's pretty exciting just to see that possibility. And then just one final comment on the Tesla range, because I happen to have a new Model 3, and yes, they say it's a 272-mile range, and I did drive it to Santa Barbara, and I think maybe I could have gotten there with no air conditioning, no sound system, nothing, and driving at the speed limit the whole way. So and that's probably true for almost any EV, that your mileage really varies depending on how much electricity you're using for all the bells and whistles. So anyway, those are the comments, but it's exciting to see all the possibilities now for bringing EV charging in, because that is such an important lever for EV adoption. Because even with all the great work of Jane and people like her, people are going to deal with range anxiety.
Thanks, Mitch.
Yep.
All right, any other public comment?
So at this time, if there are any other members of the public who would like to speak on this item regarding scope of work for climate action plan strategy number 2 and number 3 for years 2025 to 2030, can use the raise hand feature below the screen or next to your name. And if you're on a landline, press *9. I'll be able to unmute you. I don't see any hands raised. Yes, I'll move back to you.
All right, so now we can open this up for EQC discussion. And as a reminder, the goal tonight is to identify the highest impact recommendations for staff to explore. So I was thinking we could hear from each of the commissioners and then kind of see where the alignment is. Who would like to
Maybe
begin?
First, so
Okay.
of the various things you listed, I think education is probably the single biggest thing that you can do. I think the city has a trusted relationship with its citizens, and so one of the big issues I think in adoption is, where do you go for trusted information? And whether that's information that the city creates or points citizens, residents to, like the PGE tool. And also given our budget constraints, I understand we have $1 million gap in our budget, trying to add dollars to the mix in addition to what PGE is doing, the state is doing, PCE is doing. I don't think that's an area that we should focus on, but I think the education part of it, and there are multiple dimensions of education, and when we decided we're going to go there, I'm happy to share. I'm also working with a nonprofit trying to get greenhouse gas reduction fund dollars for EV adoption for low income and disadvantaged communities. So a lot of research has been done on what are the issues that those communities are challenged by, and what information and education do they need. Like, for example, I was just on a call this week with Lyft. Lyft is trying to get a bunch of their drivers who are low income people, and they've gotten a lot of demographic data of their users, where they live, what their incomes are, what their credit scores are, what their concerns about adopting. So I think there's a fair amount that we can get from what PCE has done, or PG&E has done, or Lyft, or other nonprofits. So that's the first thing. Then the second thing is, I think to your point, how do we make sure we aggregate all the possible funding sources that are available to the city and to our residents, so that they get the maximum benefit. So like, for example, this greenhouse gas reduction fund, there's a portion of it called the NCIF grant, which is $14 billion. Up to three organizations are going to get that $14 billion. 40% of that money has to go to what's called LIDAC, low income disadvantaged communities. It turns out that Belhaven is a LIDAC track. I just looked it up. LIDAC track community. So literally everyone in the community, regardless of their income, is qualified to get these dollars. So when these large organizations, which are all nonprofits, get their money, we should do everything in our power to get those nonprofits to work with us, for us to work with them, get access to that funding, state funding, national funding, local funding, utility funding, and get that. So what the city can do with that money, and then also what our residents can access, because that's one of the issues that Liv talked about, is the challenge to get access to the information about all the subsidies that are available and how they qualify, and actually facilitate the application process. So I think those are all areas where, feet on the street here in the city to help our local residents with all that is right in my mind, right in the crosshairs of what the city could be doing.
Thank you.
Done.
Thank you, Commissioner Heffel. No, that was great. All right, who'd like to go next?
I just had a question. Can you briefly explain the policy options that were considered a couple of years ago that the council did not want to proceed with?
I think they were similar to kind of like reach codes where, if you're doing a certain amount of work, like upgrading your panel, there'd be a certain amount of EV charging required, or if you're repaving the parking lot, that could be an option. And then, there was some more kind of, I'd say, aggressive options, which is, and I think trying to think through the implementation of that, similar to building electrification, like time of sale, which a lot of these properties don't always turn over like that either. Or, kind of having you need to have a certain amount of charging by a certain year. But again, the implementation of that kind of takes a few other mechanisms and levers, because we don't necessarily have all those levers right now. Thank you. Did you have more you wanted to add?
Not this time.
All right, any other comments?
I think that sorry, may I?
Yes.
So for me, the part of. I would love to understand better what the dynamics are with each one of the types of this is a meta question, so, sorry, this is a basic question before providing input on what the next step is. Because, so we have had, I had a car since, an electric since 2013, one of the early ones. And it has really bad charging, so I'm very attuned to charging issues. And the dynamics of charging in a place where you can have a garage and you can keep your charger in there is very different than having it in a public or a space that you cannot keep your charging. And so there are a bunch of dynamics here. So I'm looking at the numbers of participation on existing programs. And it's one multifamily property and maybe 6 multifamily properties. Those numbers are very low, seems to me. So my first question would be, why? Is that because the incentives are not there? Is that because the landlords are not interested? I know that the tenants have a right to ask for installation. I mean, that's a California law. But I was having a conversation with somebody who was saying the tenants that person had been interacted with were very leery to ask a landlord for anything because the landlord could take negative action on that. So just understanding what the dynamics are for all of these for multifamily. I think that for single families, I think that traditional approaches work. And so I know that the numbers are in the multifamilies, but I don't understand what are the leverage points on the multifamily. So I love the data that you had about the large numbers, because with a bit more information, I could make a hypothesis about, oh, there are this many chargers here because it's a new building. There are no chargers here because it's an old building, and then double click on, okay, well, why is this multifamily property not doing it? What's the benefit to the landlord? Maybe. So trying maybe some sampling on particular cases and see why. But that's my guess.
Yeah.
I mean, I actually polled some Reddit sub-community for ideas, and some of them were suggested for how to deal with multifamily. Some of them were saying just put level 1. Don't try to charge it. Just make it available everywhere in all the lots on all the parking slots. And it's slow charging, but you don't have to deal with high-powered access to the building. You don't have to deal with how to charge for each parking space. So it seems to me that there are multiple subclasses here, and understanding the subclasses and how big they are, and then choosing which subclass to attack would make a difference. That's my first. I don't know.
Those are all
Does that
good
make sense?
points. Yeah, I mean, yeah, we did, and Philip can chime in too on, the participation to the amount of multifamily properties that we have in Menlo Park, it is, I'd say, pretty low. But there's other factors for the property owners. I think we've had some multifamily properties drop out of the program because they maybe needed to upgrade a transformer or something, and so that kind of prevented the project from moving forward. There, because of the housing demand in the Bay Area too, there could, there's sometimes a sense that, people are gonna still try to go for the most affordable place and kind of.
Right.
um,
Yeah. So when I heard first about the level 1 approach of just put level 1 everywhere, I said, but it actually might help because you
Yeah, it
get
actually does give you
whatever, you
sufficient
get 40 miles and that's
charging,
enough to go.
better than
somewhere.
nothing.
Right, and that's
That's
very
for
cheap to do, right?
Yeah. And
I
I
had a
think,
couple of.
and I
things
think
to
there's
add.
other worries, right, where,
Philip
Paul's-
had raised her hand.
oh, go Philip.
Philip, did you raise your hand or did you unraise your?
Yeah, I could just add a little bit more to that too. First of all, we love level 1 charging in our program.
Yeah.
We're big fans, but and to provide a little bit more detail, there's a dynamic difference between condo properties and rental housing properties for sure. And to be totally honest, the condo properties, which Menlo Park had more of than average in our program so far, those go slower. Condo properties are just slower to act. They're slower to put in charging. They need more approval. They need more internal consensus. And oftentimes those are the sites that say, just forget it. We'll come back to this in a year or two when we have more demand from the homeowners. Rental apartments tend to go faster. They tend to put in more quickly. They have quicker decision making, and the dynamic on that is actually changing, where before we were really trying to work to get folks in, and now we're getting apartment property managers come to us saying that prospective renters are not renting at their property because they don't have EV charging. So it does seem like things are starting to shift a little bit, which is a really great thing to see. But just wanted to know that dynamic in multifamily between rentals.
Do you know where that, in what areas of Menlo Park that's happening, in particular Bellhaven, is that also happening in Bellhaven?
I don't think I have that level of specificity. I'm just reacting to the applications that we've received so far in our program. So I won't be able to speak to that.
Thank you.
All right.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, Philip. I think Commissioner or Vice Chair Schmidt, you had your hand up.
Yeah, so I was thinking about both of these combined because of the idea of the highest impact. Where do we have the highest impact? And if we think about these things as a pair of things a pair of initiatives together, I guess the request I would have would be to investigate a two-pronged strategy that maximizes time and budget, and building off of what the two commissioners had said earlier. One is with the city. I think the city would be well served to focus on the charging part of this and dedicate most of their staff and existing budget and reducing budget to that one, because it's a hard problem to solve with an external partner. The city has the most influence over landlords, and being able to do that kind of outreach and create those kind of incentives. I would recommend maybe that they would spend less time on the consumer and the purchasing EVs part of this, because there's a number of partners besides PCE who have existing programs. And from firsthand experience, I would recommend we reach out to Lauren at Actera, the exec director, who a lot of us know through various things. But the nonprofit that I ran, we worked on a grant together with Electrify America. It had education components. Actera has a very big suite of existing workshops in English and Spanish. So they reach out to consumers, they do the education piece. So the second recommendation is the city manages and collaborates with Actera on the consumer and purchasing part, Cap 2, I think it is, I can't remember the numbers, and form a coalition, because they'd also be happy to bring in manufacturers and dealers. So there's plenty of people in that ecosystem, if the city would be willing to manage a coalition where they wouldn't have to spend their budget and their staff time going out and building consumer awareness. There's lots of stuff there. And then Actera would be happy to work on grants. So that could actually be a bit of a moneymaker for the city as well, if that model was used. I can't remember the amount of our grant, but we got it from Volkswagen, Electrify America. And so I just know from firsthand experience that the city doesn't have to take a loss and go down that if that's the way they devote their energies. So that will be my recommendation as you're thinking about the highest impact thing, and a way to manage both CAP priorities at once. Hopefully that was useful.
Yeah, thank you. I have a couple of thoughts I'd like to add. So the research that I had done about the biggest obstacles seemed to be the upfront cost and the availability, as we've been talking about, of charging infrastructure. So it seems like there's a lot of great resources already reduce the price. So I'm not, like, we could add more money to that pot, but I'm not sure if that's the biggest bang for our buck. But I think at a minimum, like what Commissioner Kissel was saying and Commissioner Schmidt, is that let's make sure that we spend some resources making sure people know about what's available to them to purchase the EVs, whether it's through Actera, through another education program, or through the city, and some combination of those things. I think that would be really well served. And I think it's important for us to keep in mind, how are we going to reach the diversity of our residents? So including not just online, but also in person and in Spanish and, you know, print. So that's regarding the affordability piece. The second part about availability of charging access. What I see what the city has been doing is, like, when the city has control over something, say like Cap 5 and electrifying all of city operations, it feels like we're rocking and rolling on that. And I wonder if we could spend more energy doing direct investment to increase the number and the convenience and the affordability of public charging. So I'm imagining like getting grants or whatever answer it is, like not just our regular operating budget, to put EV charging at like community centers and the libraries and the pools and the city hall and all the parks. And I think we even own the parking lots downtown. So those just seem like a great opportunity, especially with downtown, to revitalize downtown. I know that's one of our other city goals. And so if people go and park and then they go out for dinner, go shopping, it just seems like a really nice win-win. And it's something that the city would have complete control over, as opposed to trying to influence other people to do things, which I think we should also do. But, if we're talking about what we can actually control, that seemed important. As it relates to encouraging other people to put in EV charging, obviously, I think we need a combination of like carrots and sticks. And it might make sense to go back to city council with, the updates on what we've tried and what has or hasn't worked. But things like, okay, here are a few ideas that came to me. Like, is there like a 10% bonus density credit for incorporating EV charging into new developments? Things like this. Could we do direct installation for multifamily unit dwellings, like do the actual design, permitting, installation by some contractor that we approve, where there's no actual cost to the property owner? Hopefully, again, funded by grants, given our current budget situation. And then I'd just love to see us partner with other major property owners to add public EV charging places like at Caltrans. That would be great, or like other large parking lots like the Safeway lot. I don't know if they have. But I think the other piece around, like when I look on PlugShare for public charging in Menlo Park, it's like there's one here and there's one there. And when I've been on long trips, like I don't really want to go to just one place, because if it's used or it's out of service, it feels very risky. And then you're driving around and you have, 10 miles left. And so I would love to see us have banks of charging, 5 to 10 chargers in these places, so that if you go there, it's very likely that one will be available when you need it. Those are my thoughts. Thank you. Anybody else? I don't think we've heard from Commissioner McKenna or Commissioner Lynn. If you guys have anything you want to add, no pressure.
Yeah, well, I appreciate all the comments the commissioners have made, and I really agree with the outreach. I think with building electrification and transportation, there's so much that we can educate the public on. And events that I've gone to in the past for EVs, where a bunch of EV owners come together and they park their cars and they're there to answer questions for prospective EV buyers or adopters. And it's a really helpful way to just talk with an actual EV owner. And I'd love to see like multiple events like that, not just one, so that there's many opportunities for people to attend, because people are so busy. We give them more chances to do that. That would be helpful. And I really agree with various commissioners on whatever we can do to increase the charging infrastructure. I think that's a real hurdle to people getting over and making that switch. And I love Chair Headley's ideas about just having a lot available, because I've had experiences as well where you go on a trip and you just like, you're kind of nervous, like, is this really going to be working when I get there? But if you see that there's a bank of them, you have a lot more level of, a much greater level of comfort that one of them is going to be working and available for you to use. And so you don't have to bounce around from one place to another. And yeah, whatever grants and whatever public money we can find or private money to help build out that infrastructure would be something we should explore.
Thank
Is
you.
there, is there anything we can do to help with it? Because one of the things you may have noticed in the chart there about commercial charging versus home charging is, it's like 3x the cost.
Yeah.
And so especially if we're trying to drive low income adoption, then it's going to have to be on site, or it's going to have to be subsidized. So what has the city done in the past, or what can we be doing going forward to encourage more multifamily installation? So I think, finding out what grants are available and letting landlords know. Are there any other things that, I don't know what the answer is, but it seems to me that the biggest hurdle to get broad adoption is not, because people take trips, and that's true, that's an issue. How they work day to day, is they want to be able to get in their car and go, and they don't have to stop and get a charge and pay 3x the charge rate. If you charge at a public charger, it can be more than gas.
Right. And I think my idea about the public charging is especially the one the city owns, I would love to see it done like at cost.
Yes.
Or like
okay.
a minimal
Great.
upgrade.
Yes.
We can't really
Okay.
control what, or maybe we can,
Yeah.
what different, corporate entities will do, but I would love to see us do it.
Yeah.
Like a forecast,
Very good.
or I'm thinking about like California Ave, how their parking garage has, it's covered with solar panels. And then there's tons of EV charging downstairs, like maybe we cover, our lots with solar panels and get some batteries, charging. Maybe very expensive,
No, I think it's.
but yeah,
Originally, our chargers were free up until, I think this year. Maybe last year. Oh, no, last year when we did the Buster P study.
And are we now
It's scheduled.
charging at cost, or are we marking?
So what we charge, so what we're doing is collecting the kilowatt hour plus the capital cost of installing the equipment so that we can install more equipment. So there's usually like an access fee, $1, and then the actual use is basically, and we have different like time of day uses. I think there's like 3 different times and season as well. So, we adjust for all of that. And then if you're in the parking space for more than 3 hours, then there's kind of a penalty, because we were having a lot of conflict with people wanting to charge and someone's left it there all day. And that's kind of what becomes the issue for the person that doesn't have at-home charging is now you're nervous. Because you gotta I've actually done that too during meetings, had to leave and go charge it somewhere else. But for employees, we do grant like free 3 hours. So that at least we're trying to promote people coming into the city to, not generate air pollution or emissions while they're coming through. So yeah, I think that's the part becomes tricky, is like trying to understand what's the intention of the charging infrastructure. Do we want to, because the other part too is as the commercial sector starts to use EVs, they're gonna actually need those public areas too. And so
Right.
the renters and the multifamily residents are gonna be competing with Lyft, Uber,
Mm.
plus the other commercial, and hopefully you've got a
Yeah.
spot, unless we cover pretty much all the commercial parking lots with some level. But I think there's probably potentially, I know John was asking about, what other options were we exploring. I think there was a few options about, if you're a multifamily unit and there's a new development, is there a way to share? Can we put a Band-Aid
Mm.
on this issue so that people have a little bit more access? There's policy levers there. They're a bit tricky to navigate with the city attorney's office, but those are, again, things we can explore for those 5 years. How can we help with that aspect so that people are feeling confident about charging somewhere close and not competing with others and feeling safe too. I think the other part is safety. There was a study that was done like an article. in Mother Jones or something, they were saying that a lot of women were returning the EVs because they didn't feel safe,
Oh, really?
where they were having to charge in public spots, because it's like in a dark spot, like behind a store. Or if you go on the 17, it's like definitely, I've charged there too, and I'm just like, lock the door, like, it's, so it's kind of also. And I'm sure this will be resolved over, because it's this feedback, right, that it does need to be well lit. If you're sitting in your car for that long, like you want to feel like you're comfortable and. But those are like all aspects, or, there's. I mean, cities sometimes have tenant protections over utility costs, like is this, and I'm pretty sure this would fall under that for rental properties, like you can't charge more than what it actually costs for it. But we'd have to look into that more of whether they're allowed to recoup the cost of the equipment.
Thank you. I think before we go, I think we had Commissioner Schmidt's hand up and maybe Commissioner Lynn, and then we can come back to you.
But did you want to go first? Yeah, the more I'm thinking about this, there's I think 3 things to consider. One, I had a good chance to chat with Stefan about the grant writer for the city, and I think the challenge with going for grants, it happened in city council as well. It's great to sort of grants, and they're gonna hire basically one person who's not gonna be up to speed. They're gonna have every department in the city asking to find grants, and then this person apparently will also have to manage implementation. So that is a big red flag of, 50 people asking for grants with one poor grant writer having to go off and do it. So want to put that out there. The second was, I think we have time, because these are the first, we have a year to kind of formulate it. And I'd recommend, if everybody was open to it, and particularly Rebecca and crew, is have the city think about the strategic side and the trade-offs that we have to make for certain parts of this, but have a subcommittee. I know that's probably not popular, but have a subcommittee for the EQC who does 3 things. We collect some of the ideas like this and other things. So we do a little bit of research on low-hanging fruit ideas, not the big structural adjustments to the cap plan. So I'd say the subcommittee would do that. They would go off and they would look for the funding. They wouldn't necessarily go for it, but they come up with the list. Because there's gonna be 3 big buckets of funding based on my experience. One is workforce, because there's a gap in all the charging stations, and so they're trying to get more electricians to install them. So just saying, go build more charging stations, we've had that discussion before, but that's a big revenue, big bucket of money that's out there. There's infrastructure money out there from the car manufacturers plus the state. And then there's education money out there. So the subcommittee would research those 3 categories and come back with the list of potential grants. And then the third thing I think the subcommittee could do would be find a few more partner programs. We probably know of a couple. I know, I can call Lauren tomorrow and she'd be excited to work with the city with Actera, but there's probably 3 or 4 more. And then we come back with a report, say December timeframe, January timeframe, that complements what, instead of the city having to do all of it, and Ori and Rebecca, the subcommittee could come back with some very complementary pieces of work that would fit into the overall adjustment of the cap plan itself. So I'd propose even though we shut a lot of them down, this might be one that we fire back up.
Is that a motion?
Am I allowed to make a motion? I mean, it's a discussion point that I'd
We
recommend,
can
but I'm
come
just,
back to it at the end of our discussion.
I think it would be a good idea, because otherwise it's all our friends here who have to do all that work, and I don't think it's really gonna be that hard. There's a lot of low hanging fruit out there. It's just gathering it all together and.
Yeah, okay, let's go back to that. So let's go to Commissioner Lynn and then.
Can you just articulate that last bit? So I got potentially forming a subcommittee to research grants that could be tracked over the long term, right? So that when they arrive, we can access them.
And collecting ideas that are not at the big infrastructure level that you'd be thinking about citywide, but there's a lot of other ideas when it comes to both the EV charging and the EV selling. So there's a lot of kind of, let's call them tier 2 smaller ideas. And then the third is, what are the partner programs that already exist? So Actera being a primary example. They got workshops in English and Spanish. They've got a testimonial program. I'll send you the website. I can't remember, but they already have an amazing, they win grant after grant on these programs. So why not just partner up with them and put the city on as a partner?
Mhm. Okay.
So, yeah, that's, those three things would save you and Ori and Joanna, I think, from having to do them.
Cool. Thank you, Vice Chair Schmidt. Commissioner Lynn.
Yeah, I just have a question on if we had any influence on this strategy of, like the pricing that we do charge for, like the EV, like the public EV charging, like we mentioned, you know, there's the need to recoup infrastructure costs so that we could put it back in and like build out additional EV charging, but, I think we want to balance that with the incentives of, you know, people who are currently like using them. And if that would help with the cost of, you know, using the public charging for people who have like already adopted EVs versus and trying to find like additional funding sources elsewhere for building out additional infrastructure.
Yeah. I think that's definitely, yeah, a possibility, and we can revisit. So almost every year, we look at the master fee schedule, and that's where the city council approves the fees. So it's something that we can definitely look at as to, like, so you're saying to maybe eliminate the access fee. Yeah, and I forgot to mention too, like the overnight, so these chargers have a lower rate because we know that, you know, more frequently folks might be actually using these. And so we don't have the penalty after 3 hours after a certain time,
Oh, interesting, okay.
because we didn't want to
Mm.
limit their use. Yeah, or feel like they have to get up at 3 AM to
Yeah.
go get their car. But yeah, so those are different ways of addressing it, so thank you.
Cool. All right, Commissioner Poligrillo part here.
Yeah, I was looking at the slide on, I guess 8, which is the description of the strategy of CAP 3. And is that, I was trying to see what the goal number was here. So is there a goal? I guess two questions. One is what is this is a strategy to accomplish something. I don't see I don't read the goal. So what's the something, and have we decided that's a strategy? I assume that this was put together a few years ago.
This one, no,
No, oh, okay.
but
So-
we've done a bit of work since
Okay,
2020.
okay. But what's the goal in here? So what's the number? I mean, what are we trying to do?
I think
So I see that the strategy is to to accomplish something by doing multifamily and commercial, making that more available. That's a strategy. But what's the measurable goal here?
Can I offer something?
that's right.
Okay, so just looking at the climate action plan amended in 2021.
Oh, okay.
There's not a specific number, but cap number 3 says overall expand access to EV charging for multifamily and commercial properties. And then it just generally says install or assist building owners in installing EV charging throughout the city. So there isn't, I'm not reading a specific numerical goal that we can benchmark against, but it might be time to do that maybe as part of our update. Am I getting that right, Rebecca?
I mean, we're looking generally for the scope between 2025 and 2030, like how can we expand? I mean, if there is a sub goal of, you know, we want a certain percentage of the multifamily, I mean, that's something where we can measure, you know, the progress. And I mean, we could just do that.
The reason why I was asking is I was trying to think through the scenarios about why people are not using EVs, and they keep changing over a couple of years, right? I mean, the prices are going down, the mileage is going up. So yes, it's true that we charge at home. That might not be true in 3 years. Right, so that's why it's trying to double think like here is like, what are we trying to do? I mean, if the mileage is very high and we can charge at 150 kilowatts or something like that, is this the right strategy for 5 years from?
I think that's a good question, because if we had fast charging all over the place and people could charge up in 20 minutes, while you're at Trader Joe's,
Right?
like, why would we all have our own chargers at home?
Yeah, I mean, today we have them because
Right.
we need them and the price differential is
Right.
is such a thing that you want to do it. But in 3 years, I mean, I was reading, there's a new company that, Cattle, which is the biggest, battery manufacturer, and they are claiming that they have new chemistry that's almost ready, that's going to charge in 20 minutes, 200 miles. I mean, it's much faster than anything else.
Yeah,
So the dynamic might change, right? So the ability of being able to use our public infrastructure to charge 150 might actually make a
Yeah.
difference. Right? So
Yeah, that's true. I
I mean,
mean,
it's
but if we looked at the
100%
last
true that
10 years
today-
of trying to get to EV,
I know.
it just depends like where you want the goal to fall, right? I mean,
Well, it's really about EV adoption. Charging is just.
It's a way to
component
know. That's what I mean.
facilitate. What we really want to do is get more, more ICE cars off the road and more EVs.
But what I would say, just to make sure we can be smart about how we do the resourcing for this. I agree with that, but with the.
hi Jane, welcome.
Hi, Jane.
oh, I was listening to you guys.
But the thing I would hope we can leverage, you reminded me of something I heard today. Sorry, I want to wait for Rebecca. I think it's really important that we bifurcate the issue, because I agree with what you're saying. But we have a tendency to want to solve it ourselves for EV adoption. Here's what I noticed. I was listening to something on today. It was the CEO of Ford talking about F-150s and how they were gonna lose money, billions of dollars a year in first generation EVs, because they're gonna make money in second generation EVs. The biggest car companies in the world are thinking about figuring out strategies on how to sell more EVs. Local government, not local government, state government, other entities, nonprofits, tons of people are thinking about how to do EV adoption. So let's not burn cycles. Let's not burn energy. Let's tap that. Let's focus on the thing that really is relative to Menlo Park, which is our city, our infrastructure, our landlords. That's something that Ford Motor Company can't solve for us. Ford Motor, they can solve the how to sell EVs. So I'm totally agreeing with you, but I want to make sure we don't go down a path of, let's come up with our own answers, because 100 people who are smarter than us, who are building these vehicles, are all trying to figure that out. And they're putting incentive money toward.
So building on that, I would agree with you. I would also say then one step further is, I do believe that these major corporate interests are gonna solve the public charging infrastructure issue. So I think if what they're not gonna solve is the at-home charging.
But that's the part of the problem that relates to Menlo Park, the at-home charging and.
Right, especially I think
Yeah,
maybe
yeah.
we should be focusing on at-home charging,
local,
not
yeah.
public
That's-
infrastructure charging.
Yeah, it's the localized problem that I'm recommending we solve, not the how to incentivize and sell EVs in
EVs,
general, because there's so many resources we could tap into. So let's just
Although
leverage.
from an education perspective, when you look at that one chart that says there's $17,000 of incentives available,
Totally.
I'm betting there's a high percentage of people in Menlo Park that qualify, that earn less than $50,000, that don't know that they could buy an EV cheaper than they could buy a Toyota Corolla.
Yeah.
So if I may build on that, so but back to the root issue. If our goal is to have low income people getting access to EV, then I think we should measure that. And the multifamily housing was a good strategy. I think it was the right strategy 2 years, maybe it's today the right strategy for that. That might not be the right strategy in 3 years. But we should be measuring what we want, which is low income access to EV.
Thank you. All right, so I guess I kind of want us to pause. I want to check in with Rebecca.
We're here doing some math, yes.
Okay, because I don't think we need to vote on anything, as I understand it, unless we want to create a subcommittee. But you were looking for, what did we think would be the greatest, most impactful actions we could take? So I'm curious what you're hearing from all of us. If you were to summarize what you're hearing, or if you want us to summarize, Are you getting what you needed is my main
I think I've
question.
got a little bit I can share.
Okay.
Well, everybody's in front of it now.
I'd also love to hear from Philip, what his thoughts are.
From this?
From Philip from TCE,
Oh.
given what.
Hmm,
he's
Yeah.
heard.
All right, so why don't we hear from Rebecca, and then if Philip has things he wants to add, we can do that. Okay,
So this is what I've heard, and I can add in here or take out, but, so the 2025-2030 scope of work for CAP 2 and number 3 is education and outreach from a trusted source, help the community understand the affordability of EVs, and their incentive and the incentives available, right? Oops. Events to learn about EVs. I added a hotline, but because I actually think there is one somewhere, and maybe Philip can add to it, but I've come across it where someone can just call and ask a bunch of questions like which EV is the right one for me. Aggregate funding from federal, state, local, and utility, especially for low income housing. City to focus on increasing access to EV charging. For at home or. Oh, yeah. I was thinking kind of similar to Jeff, I can come back at some point with ideas on implementation, kind of what does that really look like, and drill a little bit further into that. Partner with a nonprofit is for education regarding EV purchase and use. Increase the amount of public charging available at city-owned properties. Explore incentive-based rules, direct install program where there is no cost to the property owner. Partner with public agencies and private property owners to install EV charging. Consider removing other fees from city-owned charging. So it's just at cost for electricity consumed. And find other funding to support operation and maintenance and more charging. And then form a subcommittee to research grants that could be tracked over the long term. And collecting ideas on implementation and partners. All right. All right,
Wow.
Okay.
What about the last idea I had suggested of tracking ownership of EVs by income level? Or something like that? Would that make sense?
yes.
Cool. And then I think Commissioner McKenna has something.
Yeah, I don't know if this needs to be said, but just as we talked about public charging at city-owned properties, might be just, the housing element, there's a possibility that the city lots get converted into housing, so just be strategic about where you invest that money and don't put it in a place where it's gonna be redeveloped in a short amount of time.
Or if it's gonna be redeveloped, like add a whole bunch of public
Yeah.
charging as part of that.
Exactly.
Put them at the big 40-story thing at the Sunset Camp.
Yeah.
Right
There
there.
you go.
All right,
Nancy?
Yeah.
Is it okay for me to say something, or is it
I think
just-
officially no.
Okay.
We are glad to have you here, though.
No, I finished my work and I just had to come in hybrid, to talk with you, but I did hear the whole meeting and I had some thoughts later, so.
Okay, and Rebecca, feel free to tell me if we want to make an exception.
it's okay.
I don't know how formal we need to be.
Yeah, and we're a little bit informal, but yeah, I think through the chair, there could be additional.
Public comment period. Well,
But I
maybe
think
we
to
can
make
do
it
that.
fair is
Yes.
to ask everybody.
Okay, well, maybe we could do that with Jane, and also if Philip has anything else he wants to add, and maybe anybody else, given the conversation that we've had, we could.
Can I suggest a small, a possible change to that, the no cost part, the bullet there where it says explorer incentive, where there is no cost to the property owner? Is it possible to make it a benefit to the property owner in addition to no cost? Something that if they install it, they'll get some benefit?
I mean, they're gonna get more tenants.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
but if they
Yeah.
have all the tenants that they want, then they're not going to do. So it depends on. the
Right,
situation,
right, they have
It
like
depends on
long-term
the, it depends on
tenants.
the demand, right? So. I'm just saying.
Yeah, or yeah.
If they
With
have all
that
the benefits-
suggestion, I was mostly thinking how can we take away all the barriers that the property owners have? And if we're saying we'll design it, we'll implement it, you don't have to think about it at all. You know,
It's
Yeah,
like,
but
why
it's still,
wouldn't you-
is their time, right? So.
but they don't have to do any, I mean,
Yeah,
a little bit, but
No, I hear you.
Make it
I
as easy
hear
as
you.
possible.
It's-
That was
yeah,
the idea.
Yeah, so this is just building on that one, like, just add something so that they will get some,
maybe.
Like
I don't know, I mean, a tax rebate to them, or
Yeah.
whatever.
Mhm.
Because it.
For
it is-
being willing to.
Yeah.
Interesting.
You know, a city tax rebate, for example.
Okay, that's helpful, yeah.
All right, so let us go to public comment, our additional public comment. Jane,
Thank you so much, and I'll try to be brief here, but I was listening to the whole meeting ever since I mentioned, I had my first comments. And I wanted to just say that whoever mentioned that L1, we call it level 1 charging, is really helpful, is absolutely right. And it's very important that L1 still be included, because you can charge a car overnight and get 40 miles, you know? And we've had many people start out with EVs only when they had L1. You know, and they drove all the way up to Stanford, even from Santa Cruz, a couple people, and, you know, learned how to stop on the way here and there, but they were very committed. They were some of the early adopters. So yes to that. Also, I'm on the bike committee, the advisory committee for Palo Alto, and so I don't know if you've been talking at all about biking, but I want to add that back into the equation. Maybe, you know, it was mostly focused on EVs for tonight, so, you know, happy to have that, but let's not forget that that's also an important part of, you know, this. And then I also wanted to just say, I've been an ACTERA member for 20 years probably, and they do great work. And when we first started our classes at Stanford 8 years ago, they came to our classes, got ideas from us, and I continue to work with them. We collaborate with each other, but they're, you know, they do wonderful things, but I think the fact that we also do this behavioral science piece is just takes it to another level. And I'm not trying to just promote our company, but it's just something to keep your radar out for, you know, is that how do you really help people overcome their obstacles and, you know, find a solution. And finally, my other partner, Mark Geller, who's the co-founder of Plug in America, he's part of a coalition. He sent me just a thing to share with everyone called the EV Charging for All Coalition. And they're really promoting having people be able to get charging into their MFUDs especially. And it's a nonprofit that's part of Plug in America. So it's called the EV Charging for All Coalition. That's it. Thank you for letting me share.
Yeah, thank you, Jane. All right, over to Philip.
Thanks. Just two quick things to add. On the hotline, we actually have a hotline that we operate through Grid Alternatives. It's for used EV rebates, so folks can call, and then our Grid Alternatives contact. You can schedule a meeting actually, and they'll walk you through. It's complicated because there's several rebates out there, and they have different qualifying things. So they'll help you figure out, and then they're also a generalist and can speak about EVs and generally and how people how it can fit into people's different charging situations or whatever. Second thing I wanted to add real quick, I know there was comment on education. All this is great. I wanted to provide just another data point. We do an annual field poll. We do a poll every year of the community, and to inform some of this education work here, 90% of people in the county are aware of EVs, and 80% of them view them favorably, but only about 40% say they're familiar with EVs. So, you know, we see that as more depth in education that needs to be happening, having access to one, knowing someone that knows one, going to a ride and drive, understanding the incentives beyond just knowing. So it's a good starting place. If people know about them, think of them favorably. But there's a big drop off in terms of people saying that they're familiar enough with EVs to seriously consider them.
So Philip, what do you see that, Philip, before you go, so what do you see that the cities uniquely can do? Given that there's, statewide initiatives, all the CCAs, there's utility initiatives. There's federal funding initiatives. What do you think the cities are uniquely positioned to do?
I know this is a bit of a cop out because you've already done it, but I would say the reach codes is one of the most impactful things cities can do if for EV charging. I did an analysis to try to project how many chargers are going to exist in San Mateo County by 2035, and 66%, like about 2/3 of them, are coming from reach codes. At that point, assuming we keep building housing and all that stuff keeps happening at the trend that it's been going at. They're incredibly impactful. It's so much easier to put them in at the time of new construction than it is to retrofit later. So I know that's a cop out because you've already done it, but that's really a really important and powerful thing that Menlo Park and other cities have done to make sure that chargers are available for folks, particularly multifamily housing.
Thanks,
You
Phil.
can, just a quick follow-up on the data you were sharing. Okay, is that data available? Could you share with us some of the?
Yes.
Because I assume that there's
Yes.
more than just those two data points. There's other interesting tidbits in there.
Yeah, let me ask our marketing director. I believe we can share it. I don't see why not. We ask questions about perceptions of EVs and what people think about them and how they view them and all that stuff.
Great, thank you.
So Rebecca, I have a question for you about that. Thinking about reach codes for EVs and reach codes for buildings, we've been discussing, do we want to have additional reach codes for additions or existing buildings? Should we think about the same thing for EVs as one of the things you put on your list?
Yeah, you can. I mean, we can certainly explore that. That would be, and I'm guessing Peninsula Clean Energy would be supportive. I mean, they've helped us with reach codes in the past as well.
So
Yeah.
I wonder if we should add that to the list that you have. All right. All right. Does anyone want to make a motion around a subcommittee?
I'll make a motion. Subcommittee. Capturing mostly what Rebecca had, if we want to look at the language, but yeah, I'd be happy to make a motion.
We want to ask for.
I do want to
Yeah,
ask
go ahead.
Rebecca. Yeah, Rebecca, would that be helpful? Or do you feel like you already know who the partners are and you guys would need to do a?
Oh, is this about the subcommittee?
This is about the subcommittee. Like, would it be useful?
Do you want to share the screen so we
Yes.
can see exactly how it's
Yeah.
phrased?
And just to be
The
clear,
phrasing is going to make it.
assuming it's the short-term thing we talked, it's not the old thing of like the subcommittee that lasts for 5 years. It's the, we'll come back with a report in
3 months or 6 months, I can't remember.
whatever it is, January.
Yeah, 6. So there was, the 3 pieces were researching grants, identifying partners to potentially partner with.
And then collecting ideas below the big citywide ideas.
That
there
was
was
a
series of-
little
But it-
vague to me.
It's more, the reason I put that in my head, at least, just so everybody knows, is as you're researching grants and partners, you're gonna go, oh, that's a really cool idea. So you'll learn about the ideas as you
Yeah.
research them. I think that's been my experience at least.
Yeah.
So like keeping a running tally of some things to consider, but not the big swings at the city level.
I'm sorry, so these are ideas on implementation of what?
This
Can
is
I
just,
ask, can I just offer with this one? Rebecca has already told us that we can email her at any time with other ideas. So maybe to keep the scope of this subcommittee really tight is identify possible partners and identify possible funding sources.
I think so. I also was thinking, just to be super practical, is just keep a list, not to go into a lot of detail, but go, oh,
Yeah.
that's a really cool idea.
I mean, I think it's a good thing. I don't think it needs to be part of the subcommittee is what I was thinking,
That's
because we'll all be doing that.
It feels like a byproduct of those 2 things, but I'm fine with that too.
I don't know if it matters to Rebecca, but
Yeah, either way, we could have it as collect ideas as they come up, or the one part that this doesn't capture. And if everybody's okay with it, I think there's 3 kinds of grants we should look at. I think we should look at workforce grants, we should look at infrastructure grants, and we should look at education grants. Because those are often 3 separate buckets funded by
Yeah.
So three very, workforce, education and infrastructure.
Yeah, okay, that makes great. So we have research grants in these three buckets and identify partners for sure. And, you know, to me, it doesn't really matter if that middle thing needs to be in there. I'm open. Yeah. All right. Okay, so how does that feel, Jeff, as your motion?
That's, I'd say how she's got it. If Rebecca's okay with that, I don't think you ever. Is that useful? Because it feels like that's sort of lower level work that you and Ori don't.
Yeah,
have to
I
worry
think,
about.
yeah, either if you want to find the subcommittee or commissioners to send, trying to think, everyone's, almost all of the commissions on a subcommittee at some point. There might only be one person.
Yeah.
So, who's that one person?
It's Jeff right now.
Sure.
Oh, who's suggesting the subcommittee?
Which is why I felt okay suggesting the
I
subcommittee.
mean, it could be a subcommittee of one.
That's fine. No, I love partners. Sorry, I didn't mean for that to be a subcommittee one, but I want to put it out there because it feels like.
Yeah, I don't mean it to be one either, but yeah.
It's low hanging fruit.
All right. So sounds like
Do I
a
need to
motion.
wave my hand or something? or-
Yeah.
Okay, I wave my hand, motion.
Is there a second?
Okay,
Second.
is this to form a subcommittee?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay,
And a second
A second.
for Commissioner Kissel. Okay. All right.
And now we vote for it.
No,
Yeah, I think Rebecca needs to state the motion and then we can vote for it.
yes.
We'll just give her a moment to
Because
organize.
I'm gonna separate this in between, yeah, the motion and the feedback.
Yep.
that we received. Okay. All right. The motion to form a subcommittee. Like, do we know who's gonna be on the subcommittee?
Not yet. We can do that next.
Oh, we can just do it now.
We can do it now? Okay.
Yeah.
Who would like to be on the subcommittee?
just kidding. I'll be on the subcommittee,
Okay,
clearly, and at least to get it rolling.
including Commissioner Schmidt.
Oh, Mhm.
Anybody else want to be on that?
Can you be on more than one subcommittee?
Yeah,
I'm volunteer to be on.
Boy,
Oh, were you?
I dropped it.
Anybody else? There's room for one other person if anybody else would like to be on this subcommittee. All right, not hearing anymore?
Okay.
All right. That's pretty clear.
okay, all in favor, raise your hands. Okay, motion passes with Commissioner Evans absent. Everyone approves.
Awesome. I think we're done with item D3. Great.
Commissioners that aren't on the subcommittee can share ideas with the subcommittee, right, that they might run across?
Maybe with staff.
Then
I think with staff for
staff.
Brown
Okay.
Act. So,
Does it, I'm gonna ask a dodgy question, because I'm curious. If we created a shared document, is that not a?
No.
Instead of everybody pinging you
No,
with
yeah.
individual, you can't do that. You
But if
can't,
everybody sees it,
right, if it's a shared document.
the shared
it's
open, and everybody sees it.
Open to the public?
it has to be
No.
open to the public.
Oh, it
Yeah.
can be open to all the other
There's
commissioners.
no.
No,
Oh, really?
No.
It needs to be open to the public.
But
And
no,
actually, I mean, it's the way I read the Brown Act, you have to tell everybody that the document is there and you have to
All
tell
the
it
public
It's-
notices. Yeah.
and then try to think on strike.
But we could explore that, because I don't think there's anything super sensitive about what we might find, so. I mean, anyway, making it public, yeah, so for the sake of.
Crowdsource the grant.
So
Right.
I would be very interested in contributing ideas, but I'm not. So if you move the idea somewhere else.
Right.
Then I think that, I mean, I'm interested though, I mean,
That's where, we can, our subcommittee will look into that.
Yeah, we will check it out.
Great. And you can get some guidance from Rebecca on that.
Yeah.
Okay, because we want to make sure that we are in compliance. Okay. Thank you all for that rich discussion. On to item D4. No, that's not true. We're on to item D3, which is the chair's report to city council. So I think that had gone around to everyone. So hopefully this can be quick. Rebecca, do you want to pull it up?
yes, I was gonna take a quick break.
Oh, that's a good idea, because it is like 2 hours in. Shall we do a 5-minute break?
Sure.
Is that what you're thinking?
Yep.
Yeah. All right, so reconvene at 8:18. All right.
I think I'm gonna bow out now.
And Rebecca, thank you for encouraging us to take a break. That was, I think, well needed. The next agenda item is D3, which is approving the chair's report to city council. Okay, so I can walk you guys through the report quickly. And we'll do our usual thing, but I think the main thing I want you all to know is that this presentation is focused on the actions we've been taking as a commission. And I know we're all involved in things beyond the commission. And if you want city council to know about what you're doing, maybe in advance of the report that I give to them, feel free to email, the city council email list, and that will go to all of the city council members as well as staff, and it'll become part of the public record. So that can be another way that we get information to city council beyond this. All right. Okay. So Rebecca, so here's the agenda. We're going to go through it fast. So have your clicky finger ready to go.
I'm ready.
Okay. Do you want to make that a little bit smaller?
Oh,
the
yeah, I'm
picture?
sorry.
Yeah. All right. All right. Thank you. So you can go to the next slide here. So here we are, what it is we're doing, identifying new members, etc. Okay, next page. So we wanted to highlight the new roles and responsibilities and priorities that they essentially approved last time we were there when Tom asked this. And this is kind of a big deal because before our commission description was really only about heritage trees.
Exactly.
Yeah, so we just want to reinforce what it is we're actually focused on so everyone knows. All right, next one. And I wanted to share a few earth updates. We could add something about the Maui fire, but it's kind of a snapshot in time what's been happening. It's been a pretty intense summer. Okay, next slide. And then in terms of looking back, essentially what we pulled out were actions that we took first for CAP strategy 1, which is about building decarbonization. So it has the date and the recommendations we made, and you can go to the next slide, which I think has more related to CAP 1. And then on the next slide, it talks about other actions that we've taken around like the ZELI implementation, the work around Arbor Day, and encouraging the Tier 1 budget priority for the urban forest master plan. All right, and then looking forward, and I think this is where the more exciting piece is that we really want their input, which is to share with them our scope of work for the next year, where we look at each of these action items that we've been doing, and that we have an opportunity to revise the climate action plan based on the latest science. So we want their input on the calendar. Yes, and we have 2 active subcommittees, and I can update that to now include our 3rd active subcommittee. Yeah, okay. Next slide, please. And so here we have the highlight of what we're going to be talking about when, so that everyone knows when they can come and join us like members of the public have tonight. And then I think this is, here are our 2 subcommittees, what we're working on. Okay, well, of course, we'll add a 3rd one there. Ooh, did we define the time frame for that subcommittee that we created?
December.
January.
Okay, cool. All right. So here we have, is this the next one? So this was the a summary of the public comment that came to the EQC meetings, high level.
This is over the last year.
Since
February.
February.
Okay, got it.
because that was when we created the last deck.
Okay.
So it was February through July, and of course I can update that through August if we want, depending on, because sometimes it takes a couple months to get on their calendar. Yeah, so those are the highlights. You all have been there for that. And then this is what we really want the conversation to focus on is, do they have any feedback for our commission calendar? Are there other topics we should be considering? And what concerns are they hearing from the community that maybe we're not aware of that they want us to take into account as we move forward? Do you all, okay, so officially, I want your opinion, but first, do you have any clarifying questions? Okay.
Just a quick, this
Yes.
hasn't been scheduled yet for city
No.
council. Okay.
I don't think. Rebecca?
Yeah, we're looking more towards like the end of September.
Okay.
That's all tentative.
Yeah,
September 26th.
I'll mark my calendar. Y'all are welcome to come and cheer me on.
Can we bring signs?
You can
Yeah.
totally bring signs. You can do whatever you want. All right, any other
EQC
Sure.
forever.
clarifying questions? Love some decorum in that meeting. All right, so is there any public comment on this item?
Thank you, Chair Headley. So at this time, if there's any members of the public who would like to make a comment to the commission for up to 3 minutes on the chair's report to city council, you can use the raise hand feature underneath your screen or next to your name, or if you're on a landline, *9. If you're here in the room, you can certainly raise your hand and we'll be able to get you to address the commission on this topic. With that, don't see any hands raised.
All right, thanks. So now we can open this for EQC discussion. I'm in particular, would love to hear if there's anything you think that would make this more impactful.
Sorry, more what?
Impactful.
Oh,
Just a tiny thing, you should probably update till end of August, because the committee was formed in August, and then
Yeah.
there was more good public comments that came in.
I totally agree.
So that would be good.
And maybe even our September meeting,
Yeah, depending on-
depending on when, yeah. Okay. Check. I'm making sure that's part of it. Any other ideas? All right, well, if not, then, I think we need a motion to like approve it out of this so I can bring
I
it.
move that we approve the presentation that you presented.
All right,
and I'll second.
you guys are a team of motioners. So I don't know if Ori's taking notes. So Ori, that was Commissioner Kissel with the motion and Commissioner Pellegrini Yopart with the second.
Great, all in favor, raise your hands.
All right,
All who are present approves. Commissioner Evans is absent.
all right. Moving quickly through our agenda. So now we have D4, which was consider climate adaptation subcommittee member appointments. So last month, we shifted the focus of the climate outreach subcommittee to focus on climate adaptation. And I know some commissioners are already deeply engaged on this topic. So I wanted to open up the possibility of someone else taking my seat on that subcommittee if they were interested. So that's our agenda item. Any clarifying questions from the EQC?
Do we have could we flash back up the language of what that group's meant to do?
Sure. Yeah, it's in that deck that she just showed.
Maybe. Well, that was updated last.
I think,
time.
yeah, it was really kind of like review the policies, procedures, and something else of the city, and then recommend policies and procedures related to climate adaptation. Yeah. Including specific strategies for different populations. So look at what's happening, recommend additional things or different. Yeah. And just so you all know, I'm happy to continue to be engaged on this subcommittee. I know that some people are like really already like deep in it. And if you wanted to be on the subcommittee, I just wanted to make space for that. So any other clarifying questions? All right, do we have any?
Can we share any, does anybody need more contacts? We can probably share some of the material of the topics we were covering last time. Do you think?
If people need it, we can, if it's part of our clarifying. Because we've been already working on
I don't need
this.
to see it.
Okay,
What somebody else does, I'm one person.
I don't need it. All right, well, if there's no request for it, then let us leave it to the side. Ms. Lucky, do we have any public comment on this item?
So at this time, if there are any members of the public that want to make public comment on this item, can use the raise hand feature. Or if you're in the room, you can raise your hand. Go ahead, Jane.
Yeah, thank you.
Look at that.
I think this is a really good topic, and I still really favor putting more of the energy into mitigation. I just want to say this, we have to do this, you know, but we also, if we can, do as much preventing as possible. So,
Thank you, Jane. All right, So now we can open it up for EQC discussion.
All right, well. So I think this one came up because I keep yammering on about Bellhaven. I'm fine either way, if you want me to be part of this, because I think a super important part of this, Bellhaven's talking about, well, there's two things going on. They're talking about community vulnerability assessments around brainstorming sessions that they're doing over a period of the next few months. So Violet, Climate Resilient Communities in Bellhaven has an Environmental Protection Agency grant. So they were gonna have a nice load of data that would feed into this pretty well, I think. And Kate and Violet seem pretty open to making that. I don't know if they ever got back to you, Rebecca, but I think, I'll be there tomorrow night and I can nudge it again. So my big interest in this is not necessarily to replace you, but to ensure that there's a pretty locked in connection to that community. And frankly, the work they're already doing that somebody else is paying them to do, that we can just leverage. So,
And I mean, I was invited to that meeting too, when I started talking with the Canopy people, and so from my perspective, any arrangement with it, I do observe that you're going to be in these same meetings that we're going to be.
and I think we can both be, it's not a matter of territory at all. I just,
Oh, no,
I got into a cadence of going because it fits in my schedule, and we're working on the tree stuff with them already, so.
Yeah, and my sense was that you're already doing so much work that it might make sense for you to be on this subcommittee,
I can-
but you can also just be on the EQC.
I can feed it, you tell me, I can feed it in, I can feed that stuff into the existing subcommittee, or if you'd rather me take your spot and be on it, I'm actually fine either way, I really am.
Well, here's my sense. My sense is it might be easier on our city staff if you are on the subcommittee, because you can't really just feed stuff to us.
Yeah.
Without violating the Brown Act. So if you were on this subcommittee, it might be easier. Am I getting that right, Rebecca? Yeah. Yes, okay,
Totally fine with that.
okay.
If the guys are okay with it, I mean, that is my one area of interest is pipelining that information.
Yeah, which I think is really valuable.
Yeah.
So I'd like to make a motion that we replace Commissioner Chair Headley with Vice Chair Schmidt on the Climate Adaptation Subcommittee.
Second.
Thank you.
We have a second from Commissioner Kissel. All in favor? A motion passes.
Okay,
Don't present here.
all right, rock on. Excellent work, everyone. So we are on to our last agenda item of the night, which is reports and announcements. So Rebecca, are there any updates from you or Ori?
There are, I can email them.
Okay, great. Are there any urgent updates from commissioners? Or we could also do the email thing, but if there's short updates, I think.
Yeah, I'll just make an announcement that 350 Silicon Valley is organizing a transit-oriented event for September 23rd. It'll be sort of a family fun event to promote public transportation. It's coinciding with Transit Month, which is September. And the event will start here in Menlo Park at the library at 10 a.m. And there's still some details to be worked out, but the concept is a story time here at the library. And then folks get on the train at 10:53 and ride it to downtown San Mateo. And there's a fun sort of maybe a scavenger hunt type event there. And then the next stop would be San Francisco, where they're holding the train electrification event. So
With the new engines?
yeah, with the new electric cars and engines, yeah, so mark your calendars for a family fun transit event on the 23rd of September.
Thank you. Any other? Yeah.
Two quick ones. Super excited that we finally on the 21st, Canopy's convening group of folks who have been involved in the urban forest master plan. So we had we've been working this behind the scenes a lot. It's gonna be at Canopy's headquarters. It's gonna have representatives from the city of Palo Alto, Jillian and Joanna, I think, are gonna be there, Fire Chief Lorenzen, I keep messing that up. And then a lot of the vendors and other people who help get this moving are gonna be there. I don't think we ended up picking a date that didn't work for you, unfortunately, but the 21st, but the hope is that out of that comes a new kind of coalition on how we actually can accelerate getting the urban forest master plan done in full partnership with the city, but a load of community partners. I think there's probably 7 or 8 different groups in addition to Canby who are hopefully going to play a role. And then we'll figure out from a budgeting perspective, the city's already set aside the 250K and we have a sense of how that's going to be used. And then we'll work with Canopy to raise any additional money that doesn't cover, but hopefully not a huge amount. So I'm connected with their development director to spur that up. So what that'll equate to, I think, is a report out hopefully to the EQC once we have a new kind of working formation and what the plan is. And then hopefully we'll be able to deliver on that. So,
Exciting.
awesome.
So you had 2 updates.
Oh, and then the only other thing, if you're interested, there's an award for Canopy on September 9th. It's the thing that you had highlighted, the tree award and volunteer party. So if you're interested in that kind of stuff, they do fun events and awards and everything else. But I'm happy to send you the invite. Well, maybe Rebecca, I can send it to Rebecca and Ori, but it's just if you're interested in trees and stuff, it's a good way to get to know Canopy a little bit. So
And another former commissioner is being honored for his work.
Yes.
Scott Marshall.
Scott Marshall.
Okay,
And Canopy has a new CEO.
yes, which is very exciting.
Yeah.
Executive director, yeah.
Yeah, I met with Cami and crew just before her last day, and they're really stoked. So,
He sounds perfect for the role.
he does.
Any other updates?
Let's take one other. It's some interesting news that actually Jane shared with me earlier this week. In the state of Montana, a group of youths brought a lawsuit against the state that their rights were being violated to a clean and healthy environment by the state agency permitting fossil fuel development within their state, and the youth won. And so it's really a landmark case and really exciting for like what it might mean in the future for other similar lawsuits that might really help us steer away from fossil fuels. So
Here, here.
sounds exciting.
Yeah, indeed. All right, good. So, all right. I think we're at the end. So, let's see. So it's 8:36. Let us adjourn the meeting. Thank you everyone for your presence and your care and your commitment to this work, and have a great evening, everyone who's been participating remotely. Thank you.